Good day, everyone. My name is Roldan A. Gamal, a student of Recoletos de Bacolod Graduate School of the University of Negros Occidental, Recoletos. UNOR is located in the heart of Bacolod City, known as the City of Smile, and the home of the famous Mascara Festival. Bacolod City is the capital of the province of Negros Occidental, Philippines, and Bacolod City is more or less 50 minutes air travel from Manila. Currently, I am one of the city councilors of the city of Sagay, province of Negros Occidental. Under my chairmanship are the committees on education, project and infrastructures, cooperative, and livelihood. Likewise, I am also the department head of the Community Development Center of Lopez Sugar Corporation, a private corporation and a sugar processing plant that produces raw and refined sugar for commercial and industrial uses. And the title of my study is the implementation and challenges on solid waste management of communities in a component city. For the background, waste management is a worldwide issue, and that is according to ISUMAN 2017. The major challenge of governments around the globe remains to manage household waste, and the extraordinary increase in solid waste generation was traced to fast urbanization, extensive industrial development, and significant economic growth in the Asian region since 2000. The indiscriminate disposal of solid waste is harmful to health and the environment, such as depositing of waste on open grounds, unhygienic land filling, and often burning, where considerable impurities enter into the environment through the form of harmful discharges in the air, water, and soil. For the framework of my study, this study theorizes that the proper implementation of the provisions of the city ordinance on solid waste management is influenced by geographical location and compliance of respondents to their duties and responsibilities. It is not enough for government authorities to enact ordinances, but should provide the appropriate monitoring mechanisms to see that the implementation that the enacted ordinance attains its objectives. The theoretical assumption is anchored on the theory of good governance espoused by the World Bank in 1992. It stresses the principles of openness and integrity, participation, appropriate contact with the public, effectiveness and efficiency, legitimacy, capacity for learning, and self-improvement, and accountability in managing government resources through good governance. The objectives of my study: the study assessed the extent of the implementation of the city ordinance on solid waste management system in communities of a component city in the areas of waste generation, handling, and on-site storage, collection, transfer and transport, waste processing and resource recovery, and disposal as assessed by residents and implementers. Also, it determined whether there is a significant difference in the implementation of the solid waste management system in communities of a component city, when communities are grouped according to geographical location and respondents according to designation. Further, it investigated the challenges encountered by the respondents in the implementation of the ordinance on solid waste management. For the methodology, quantitative research design using descriptive comparative approach was used. The respondents of the study are the 67 implementers and 384 residents from coastal, upland, and lowland communities. Total enumeration was used for implementers and stratified random sampling for residents. A validated and reliability tested researchers made survey questionnaire based on the provisions of the City Ordinance and the Solid Waste Management Act of 9003 was used to collect data for the implementation. In addition, a checklist was used to determine the challenges encountered by the respondents in implementation. The approval of the local chief executive and the presiding officer of the Legislative Council of the city was sought before the conduct of the study. With permission granted, the survey questionnaires were administered with the help of enumerator oriented by the researcher, explaining the purpose and manner of data gathering. After collecting the instrument, the data were encoded and sent to the statistician for processing and analysis. For ethical considerations, we informed the consent of the participants were secured privacy and confidentiality of data and potential conflict of interest were addressed by the researcher. For the results and discussion, in general, the extent of implementation of the City Ordinance on Solid Waste Management is to a great extent. Waste generation was rated highest, while handling and on-site storage were rated with the lowest need, although both are interpreted to a great extent. The great extent of implementation of solid waste management provisions of the City Ordinance implies that the respondents adhere to most of the provisions of the City Ordinance on solid waste management. However, some areas need strong enforcement by the government to achieve a very great implementation. In terms of designation, both groups of respondents rated almost the same, interpreted as great. Findings further reveal that the implementation of the City Ordinance is strong in terms of the waste generation as the responsibility of the residents, but found to be inadequate in handling and on-site storage handled by implementers, which indicates that residents are implementing the provisions of the City Ordinance far better than how implemented. In terms of geographical location, the highest rating was on lowlands, interpreted to a great extent. The findings imply that since lowlands are urban areas, implementation of the City Ordinance on Solid Waste Management is inadequate, considering that dissemination of information is easier compared to coastal areas, the location of which is not very accessible and are prone to many of the disasters, including flooding. Coastal communities reveal a moderate extent of implementation, especially in the areas of waste processing and recovery, as well as waste disposal. Major challenge encountered by the respondents in the implementation of the provisions of the City Ordinance on solid waste management is around waste generation. It was rated highest, where 306 or 56.6% equivalent. Residents claim that neighbors do not practice the 3 Rs, the reduce, the reuse, and the recycle, resulting from a lack of information. Wastes are not segregated when collected and practiced all over the communities by implementers known to residents, which has led to some other challenges, especially in waste processing and resource recovery. Challenges to waste generation include garbage receptacles not being provided, for the care of recyclable waste, and simple ignorance of the nature of waste. Challenges in the implementation of handling and on-site storage as provided in the city ordinance, are some garbage receptacles are not along collection routes, and some storage containers and receptacles are not anymore covered, which occurred because of irresponsible handling usually done during collection services, especially when contractors are employed to perform the function of waste collection. Challenges in waste processing and resource recovery, such as recyclable staying very long in our homes, food wastes being thrown on garbage cans, and inappropriate segregation schemes, validated the findings of moderate extent in coastal areas. Respondents confirmed a materials recovery facility, or MRF, but processing is a problem and resource recovery is unidentified. Challenges in waste disposal include open burning of wastes, sanitary landfill is not available all the time, and lack of mandatory implementation of hazardous waste. In conclusion, the great extent of implementation of the provisions of the city ordinance on solid waste management system led to environmental sustainability. However, it is not enough for government to simply enact ordinances. It should provide the appropriate mechanisms for effective implementation. The significant difference in implementation in the area of disposal when respondents are grouped according to designation deserves the attention of local authorities to require government implementers to improve their work performance, while the significant differences in implementation when communities are grouped according to geographical location in all areas meet policy decision so that activities should be designed to respond to the peculiar characteristics of specific location. Challenges encountered by respondents are very common and familiar in implementation, indicative of a more serious look at local ordinances in LGUs. The implementation of the provisions of the city ordinance on solid waste management is a shared responsibility. So positive. The effective extent of implementation should lie on the shoulders of all levels of government. Inadequate implementation implies complacency of government because of the implications. Although the ordinance was enacted for the common good, however, since benefits are not favorable to individual desires, implementation is sacrificed. These are the limitations of the findings. Although the city revealed a great extent of implementation of the provisions of the city ordinance, some limitations prevent the generalization of the findings. The challenges were responded by the respondents in the checklist. It should have been meaningful if respondents were subject to open-ended questions to provide more insights into the implementation of the provisions of the ordinance. Another limitation is that the data gathering was conducted during the pandemic, which should have been more reliable if face-to-face interviews had been conducted. And these are our recommendations. For the members of the Legislative Council, the members of the Legislative Council may utilize the findings of the study as a guide in formulating amended implementing rules and regulations to enhance the implementation of the city ordinance on waste management. Next is the city environment and natural resources. These findings may be utilized by the CENRO as the basis for preparing their annual plans and programs, strategies, and projects to facilitate the effective implementation of the provisions of the city ordinance on the waste management system. For the community officials being the first respondents in cases of disasters, community officials may utilize the findings of the study to build strong partnerships with the members of the community and non-government organizations and private groups to respond to the problems of waste management, especially on the issue of finding. Including solid waste management system is one of the major problems, not only in the Philippines, but it is a global concern. Let us all be serious in dealing with this and not merely rely on our respective government agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends my presentation. I am hoping and praying that everybody, especially the panel of judges, consider my presentation viable enough and nobody will ask questions. Once again, to each and everyone, good day, mabuhay.